So for me, I always feel like it's in the times where I am out of control, or I haven't had a plan, or I have to not necessarily know what the next step is, where I really find God and find His faithfulness to me, or find that I need to rely and trust in Him. I'm a big planning person, and I like to know not just what I'm doing tomorrow, but the next 20 steps, and then especially with my finances. And last year, just like a lot of people, COVID affected my job, and it gave me some unknown for a little bit. So when COVID first happened, I did not have a job to go back to for an unknown amount of time, because unfortunately it was emergency based only for dentistry. And so for me, that was a scary time, because it was something that I never expected. I never expected to all of a sudden have a career that I didn't have something to go to the next day, or I had no idea what my next paycheck would be. At that time, we also found out that we were expecting, which is something we've been praying for and we're anxiously awaiting, and it was another unknown in the mix. And during that time, it was a question of, okay, well, we don't have our second paycheck coming in, and so do we tithe? What do we need to do to survive? Because it was an unknown period of time. But from day one before we even got married, Phil and I had always discussed that tithing was going to be really important, and something that as a family, it was going to be the foundation that we were going to have. So although we only had one paycheck, we continued to trust God and rely on Him, and it was amazing to see how much He provided during that time. And God provided, and it was a very short period of time. So after 6 weeks, I was very thankful, and I was able to go back to work. And I was thankful that God provided during those 6 weeks, and that it was such a short period of time. But I was also just so thankful that God provided a job for me to go back to. So I think for me, just choosing to trust God, even in moments where I didn't know what the next step was, and just seeing how He provided. So when I was thinking about this and thinking about Faith's mission of connecting, equipping, serving, and sending, I think that the important thing is when I'm giving my money to the church, I'm not just giving it to the church without thinking about how it's going to further God's kingdom. So knowing that we're giving our money to the church, and then Faith has ministries and wants to not only equip its members, but also send us out to the world to be lights for Christ. So I think for stewardship, it's just knowing that it's what God has gifted us with talents, or finances, or time, and that it's His gift, and that we're supposed to use it to glorify Him. So I think originally, tithing isn't necessarily an easy thing, and I know we're supposed to be cheerful givers, but I think that my recommendation would be just start. The sooner you do it, even if it's with something small, that God can change your heart, and He will, as you continue to do it, and it becomes a habit, and then it just becomes a form of worship. So for us, I feel like we're still growing. When I was asked to talk about finances, I was like, me? Talk about finances? Why would I be good at that? But knowing that God has provided, and that each step is a step towards God and worship. I would just say that I think talking about tithing or talking about finances is something that maybe as members of the church we kind of shy away from. And it's not necessarily something I'm comfortable with as well. But as I was in different Bible studies growing up, or through my professional schooling, I had friends that didn't feel like they did share about it. They did talk about their finances, and they did talk about the importance of tithing to them and to their spouses and things like that. And I feel like just having other believers go by you or stand by you and talk about finances and talk about the importance of tithing can encourage you to do the same thing and to tithe. So I think it's important as believers to talk about all the different aspects of our faith and different ways to be stewards. And I think that it's important to encourage each other, and not to avoid talking about things just because sometimes it can be uncomfortable, or feel uncomfortable, or feel like something we aren't used to talking about. Yes. So for me, I did not grow up Lutheran. I grew up at First Covenant Church in Omaha, which is like the Swedish break off of the Lutheran Church. So faith feels very comfortable, like what I grew up going to. But when I was in college, I actually went to Texas A&M, so I was in the South. So I was very used to like Baptist, Southern, like big mega churches too. And so I feel comfortable in kind of either environment. But when Phil and I started dating, I was like, okay, well, we have to figure out what church is a good fit. So we started going to Faith, and then we also went to City Light in Omaha, which is where my parents go. We kind of go back and forth. But I knew Phil felt more comfortable at Faith, especially with just his background. And he's more, I think it's so funny to me because like the contemporary service here is like nothing compared to the contemporary service I've been to. But it's also like I love it because it reminds me of growing up. So we went to Divine Shepherd when I was in residency in Omaha, and that's actually where we got married. And then when I was given a job offer, because we weren't sure, we really thought we would end up in Omaha, or I thought we would end up in Omaha. And then I had a job offer for Lincoln Pediatric Dentistry, and so we took the job offer, and then I was like, all right, so we kind of looked around, and we went to Faith, and we went to Messiah, and we went to a couple other churches, but Faith just felt like home, and it felt like a good place I really wanted a place to grow, like raise my kids and feels family oriented, and where children's ministry is important. I felt like that was all here.